We need to put some Holdo maneuvers.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Holdo Maneuver podcast. I'm Mark, and with me again, as always, is Mr. Michael Soren. We have a very special guest with us today, Mr. PATRICK COTNOIR. Welcome.
Welcome. Guys, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. So psyched to be here.
We're going to start off as we always do. I have a question for y'all.
What's that?
Why did everyone consider Palpatine a magician for how he hid the Sith?
No idea.
He had nothing up his sheaves.
Oh, boy. Oh, no.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
Told you it was bad.
It has to get better than that. This episode has to be better.
That's why we start all the episodes with the dad jokes. Because if you set the bar really low,
sure, yeah,
then it can only go up.
You can only jump over it.
As long as they don't turn it off immediately. That's the risk you guys are taking.
Yeah,
that is true.
That's true, especially with YouTube, and you got to connect them in that first 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
First time here.
Yeah,
I'm surprised he didn't leave after that one.
I was gonna say I'm in for the long haul. I'm good.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then we have you here today because recently it became at least available for like PVOD, the documentary "I'm George Lucas, Connor Ratliff Story," which you are a producer.
Very good.
And
very good.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a documentary about this talk show that I've been working on with my friends for over a decade now, called the George Lucas Talk Show. This comedian Connor Ratliff plays George Lucas and interviews real guests as himself, as if George Lucas, in his retirement, decided to start up a talk show. And his sidekick is Watto, played by Griffin Newman from The Tick and the Blank Check podcast, and I'm their on-screen, on-stage producer that they like to harangue and harass throughout the show. So it's a documentary about the show, but also about the creative process and what it's like to make a show, a comedy show in New York without any real famous people being part of the creative team. But it's a lot of fun. The show's a lot of fun. We've had a lot of cool people like Whoopi Goldberg and Weird Al and Seth Meyers, just like a lot of people who should not be doing a talk show hosted by a fake George Lucas. So it's been a fun time. But yeah, the doc's out now. People can check it out.
Yes, definitely. If you can check it out, do it. It was worth a watch. It was not what I thought it was. I actually thought it was about George Lucas at first. And then I turned it on and I was like, oh, wow. No, it's not. This is probably better that it's not. This is more entertaining.
We all know all the stuff about George Lucas. We don't
exactly.
We've all heard every single detail about that man's life. So let's try something new, right?
Try something new. Of all the guests, who was your favorite that you've had on your talk show?
That's a great question. I mean, it's been going for so long. Someone who jumps to mind a lot is Rachel Zegler, who was in West Side Story, and she's the new Snow White in the animated or the live action Snow White movie. But we got her during lockdown because she tweeted something about the prequels, and this was pre West Side Story. So I just tweeted, Rachel, come on at GL Talk Show or whatever our Twitter handle was. And she said yes immediately, of course. So her first released IMDb credit was our show. Nice. Awesome. So anytime all of these like articles were writing about things that she had done when West Side Story was coming out, they all mentioned our show. Nice. And she's been on awesome. 7 or 8 times now. She's like someone who, whenever we ask her to come on, she'll come on, and it's rad. She's called us backstage from the Oscars. Like immediately after presenting. It's a very weird relationship. But she's a real one. She's great.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's we did the show every week for like a year and a half during lockdown, and each show had at least like 3 guests on. So we had a lot of people on in a fairly short amount of time. So there's so many people, Ahmed Best was on, and that was rad. And he was like the coolest person I've ever spoken to in my entire life, yeah, he's so cool and like so smart and so funny and was just like down to play. And that was really cool. And then also like just hearing Whoopi say the name Watto is so funny. Just, you know, you hear a voice that you've heard your entire life, and then she goes, yeah, Watto, that's true. You know, like in response to whatever, and you're just like,
oh, yeah.
Right.
what am I doing here? What is happening? How did we get here?
One of those surreal moments, like what
absolutely.
just happened?
Yes, that show is it's full of surreal moments. So very happy that I get to be a part of it.
Yeah, like, and then kind of like part of that too is like what does Star Wars mean to you specifically? Like,
yeah,
I guess that's like a large question, but it's also like a small
but it's
question
also a
at the
great
same
question.
Time.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, I don't really remember a time without Star Wars in my life. I know the first time I saw it, I was, it's going to age me, I was 5 for the special editions, you know? So, like, I don't remember watching it before then, but I don't really remember much from before then.
I mean, Mark and I are around that age, so.
Yeah. So it's, you know,
maybe
it's
a little
always,
older.
yeah. It's always been there, and it's always been a big part of my life. And just like the fact that it's still going on and we still get new stuff almost every week. You know what I mean? It seems like we're getting something new for like a solid 2/3 of the year. It feels like it's rad and it's so cool. And like, you know, you go through waves where like Star Wars is cool in the popular culture, and then it's not cool, and then it's cool again, and then it's not cool again. And that's fine. You know, like nothing should be cool forever. That's sort of my take on it. So the fact that this thing is like, you know, going through a moment now where we're getting so much content is so exciting for me, just as a consumer and as like a fan of it. It's cool that things that I liked when I was a kid are still being celebrated in the general pop culture, you know?
Very true.
To make this show and to be able to, and to make this show and to be able to like talk about it and talk about things that I like as part of what is quote unquote a job. You know, this show is very fun, but it's also a job. It makes the job more fun because I get to hang out with friends and talk about a thing that I know far too much about, you know? And, you know, to me, basically all Star Wars is good, you know? And
awesome. We love to hear it.
That might be the hottest take in the world. I don't think it should be.
No, it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't. And I can find something that I like, whether it's huge or whether it's small, in every Star Wars thing, you know? So,
and it's funny you mentioned that because in the doc, there's a clip of Connor as George in the show. I forgot what was said, but his response was, well, all Star Wars is fan fiction now, or something like that. I didn't know if that was his true feeling or that's what he thought George would say.
Yeah, you know, people ask us that a lot, and it's more the George answer because he still likes Star Wars stuff. You know what I mean? Like we're all still enjoying the things that are coming out and like happy that it's available. But he has to also live in that George world, which is kind of how George really is talking about it. Like, you know, it's not his baby anymore, and it's been given over to other people, so he doesn't have control. Like, you know, he says that kind of thing in so many words, and you know, Connor has to live in that reality when he's playing George, because I think if he's doing that, being like, I love it all, I go see it all this stuff, it wouldn't feel true to that character or the guy in general. So there is this like fine line of like, we obviously don't want the horrendous behavior that happens online to happen, and we don't want to encourage that. And I think if he was going through being like, this is all garbage, I hate it, blah, 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 blah.
You'd totally invite that in.
It would, in a way, be inviting that in. And our fan base, you know, we have a very positive, kind, nice fan base, which is great, you know, because finding that in a online Star Wars community is like hard to do, frankly.
Exactly.
There's places where you can get it, but you really got to look for it. And, yeah, I don't think that's his real feelings. I think I'm maybe more forgiving about a lot of stuff than they might be, you know, like I will always watch stuff being like, yeah, it was fun. I don't know. I liked it. It's Star Wars.
Yeah,
and they may pick it up.
Kind of our opinion on this show.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Here's the thing. If we all keep talking about how dumb things are and how much we hate them, we're going to stop getting them, you know?
Right.
So why
are
we
not
doing
stopping
that?
Watching it? Like you're watching it to hate it. So Disney's just like, there's views. Who cares?
And what a waste of time. What a true waste of time. So no, I'm pro. Having fun with the Acolyte. I think it's cool. I think it's good. I'm into it. Give me more.
Nice.
100%.
And I guess kind of speaking of that, like what would you say that maybe like your favorite Star Wars medium is? Because you have the TV series, you have the films,
you have everything.
You have live action, you have animated, you have video games, you have books,
everything but like stage, like
games,
live theater.
Well, I mean, technically yours is kind of like live.
Oh, true.
In a way.
Yeah. And there was that George Lucas Super Live Adventure thing that happened.
Oh yeah.
Early 90s. And please go look it up because it's great.
Oh man.
I was trying to think of what the most esoteric answer is that I could give you if I was like live action role playing games or something like that.
There you go.
There's a group of people that love that stuff. No. Here's what I engage with. I engage with movies. I engage with some books. I engage with comics. I engage with TV. I engage with toys. That was a Ponda Baba, for in case people were wondering what I just flung up very fast. What do we got
have
there?
A candle of all things behind me. So
cool.
Candle.
I
don't have much, but I have some things.
Yeah. I think movies is probably still the number one, just because it's such a fun event, when a new one comes out. But I love TV, and I love being able to, either wake up in the morning when a new one comes out, or like make sure I'm home at 6 p.m. because the Acolyte's coming out, And I honestly will welcome anything I take. I'm definitely more of like a visual person than like a book person. But I've been plowing through a lot of the audiobooks, and I've liked that.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think it's TV movies would probably be my top two.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, in doing this documentary, like what initially kind of spurred you all to start, I guess, developing, filming, and making this documentary? I guess now at this point, like back in 2019.
Yeah. So we were not the creative people behind this documentary, just because you're not supposed to make a documentary about yourself. So I was a co-producer in that I was the go-between between the show and the people making the movie, So if they needed anyone or they needed to get footage from something, like I was that guy who was able to do that. But these guys came to us in late 2018. They came in November or December 2018, and they messaged me. And Ryan Jacoby and Marsh Chamberlain, and they said, we've been coming to the show a lot. They're filmmakers in New York. Their last movie was about intergenerational trauma and suicide in the Alaskan Inuit culture. So they needed something happy and fun to do. Yeah.
It's quite the contrast.
Quite the change, yeah. So they came to us, and they were basically just like, look, we like coming to this show. And this was pre-COVID, where it was exclusively a stage show, and there wasn't really any footage of it online. So if you heard about it, it was pretty much just through like promo tweets or whatever we were doing. And they said, we just want to film a show that we can put online so people can see it and see what the show is and what it looks like. And we said, yeah, that sounds great. And they suggested that we do like a short fake behind the scenes thing where it was like if the actual George Lucas was putting together this talk show, what that would look like. And Connor thought it was going to be too much work, basically because he was like, he didn't know that I was still going to be talking about this 6 years later, So it ended up being a lot of work. But he was like, in order for that to work, it would have to be so funny that, if this is your first time seeing the show, you need to be able to be like, oh, this is funny. Because if it's not funny, they're never going to engage with anything having to do with the show again,
Right.
So he said, let's not do that, but you could do like a short reel behind the scenes doc about the show if you want. And they said, yeah. And then they filmed for over a year, and they were still planning on doing a short. And we basically told them this would be such a colossal waste of time if this ends up being 20 minutes and you've shot 65 hours of footage or whatever it is that you
have. Oh, yeah.
So we did another Kickstarter and ended up making it a feature. It was basically wrapped up before COVID. And then they realized, they still needed to get like a few interviews and stuff like that. And that sort of pushed the whole process along like a year and a half because they needed like the interview with Griffin and like a few other small things. So they were able to make it into the feature, and they were able to add in stuff from the live stream show that happened during lockdown. So it's gone through like a lot of changes, you know, and it started out as like one very specific thing, which is funny because, you know, they were like, oh, no one knows what this show looks like. And now that we did it during COVID, we did like 400 hours of live streams. So like there's almost like too much footage of us online at this point. So the idea of the doc definitely like changed as it was going, just because it was an introduction for some people. And we wanted it to work as like, if this is the first time you're ever seeing this show, you can watch this doc, you know, or if you're a hardened fan, it would still be a cool thing for you to see.
Did you have fans who would show up every live show?
Yeah, we did. It was the venue we were doing it in mostly was in the UCB in the East Village, and that was maybe like 100 seats, 110 seats, something like that. And by the end of us doing there, it was pretty full, and I would say we would have a group of 20 to 30 people who would come to every show, or basically every show. And that was crazy at that time, you know, because like we weren't really well known. People didn't know who we were. You couldn't see footage of it anywhere. And that people liked it so much that they would come every month was like really exciting for us. And now that we're doing shows, you know, it's weird because like we'll be doing a meet and greet thing afterwards, and we'll do one we did one in London, and someone was like, I came from Denmark. You know, and then we did one in like Seattle, and they were like, I flew from Massachusetts, and we were like, we do shows so much closer to you. Why did you do this? You know, but it's cool. Yeah, it's rad. And every time that happens, it just like reminds you of, you know, that it's worth doing and that it's cool doing it. You know, we did so much live streaming during COVID that it like a lot of people will say we like helped get them through the lockdown just because they knew they.
I wish I had known about it. I very much do.
Well, Michael, great news. It's all still on YouTube. So if you have 400 hours to spare, you can go catch up.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Acolyte's wrapping up here. Maybe I can fit it in.
That's true.
We'll
do a meta coverage where we'll go.
There you go. We'll just go back and watch all 400 hours.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's nice when people are like, I've been to this before.
Yeah. Like that was like one of the things in the documentary too is like when you guys went to New York Comic-Con at the one point in it, and I don't remember if it was you or if it was Connor that said something of like, now I just hope that like people actually like show up for our panel. And like we just did like our first panel for Holdo at Phoenix Fan Fusion like a month or so ago, and I remember before we did that, I was like, I hope it's not just like one person.
It's really scary.
Yeah.
How was your panel?
I think it went well.
30 people showed up, so it was.
Yeah, it was in a smaller room. So
it was.
That was decent.
It made the room feel full because it wasn't like a giant room.
Totally. Yeah, that's great. I mean, yeah, it's scary every year, even though like at this point, it basically like. Bragging or patting myself on the back, but like we had to turn people away last year. You know, it was really cool. But even leading up to it, because you're not selling tickets, there's no way for you to know how many people are going to come. So I'm always the one being like, we got to promote. We got to still promote it. Who knows? You know, and it's scary to me every single time. I'm the one who gets very paranoid about those things. They don't really, but I'm the one who's like, it's going to be a disaster. You know?
Yeah, I've had similar moments when I've produced. Before COVID, I was producing a comedy show locally or New York where I am, and the place I'd booked to do it, we're like, we haven't sold any tickets. What's going on? Why we don't see? I'm like, just chill. People show up at the door. Sure enough, 200 people show up, sell out. We turn people away. Next year we do it. Nobody's buying tickets. Do you remember last year? Like,
I know.
But I understand. So I understand the stress.
I'm someone who, like, you know, I have a day job, but one of my main jobs is like producing and booking comedy shows. I'm in LA now, and people here don't like to buy tickets ahead of time, so it's very much that problem all the time where you're like, this isn't gonna sell, and then like 3 hours before you're like, what do you mean we sold 150 tickets in 3 hours? Like, how did that happen?
Right.
But it's not fun, and I wish people to anyone listening to this. If you want to go to a show, buy a ticket ahead of time because you're saving someone else so much stress.
Yes.
You're preventing ulcers, people. Buy the tickets.
Yes.
And I guess kind of leading off of that, like since you are like the one that's like setting up, like booking the stuff and like who you're getting on as guests and whatnot. Like, how do you, like, what's your whole process with, you know, like from point A to Z with kind of like trying to get that all set up for whatever it may be?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, I think you have to very specifically look at a person and be like, I think you will go along with this. I think you will have fun with this. And I'm someone who's doing so many live shows and interacting with so many people that I sort of do use other shows as like a testing ground for George Lucas Talk Show to be like, oh, that person was cool. I like talking to that guy. I bet he would have fun on this show. So it's a matter of just like kind of soft vetting people, just being like, will you play along? You know, will you have fun? Will you get it? You know? Yeah. And then just reaching out, and Connor and Griffin have done enough stuff at this point, and I have too. We've all done enough stuff at this point that we worked with a lot of people, or that people are at least aware of one of the three of us. And you know, it's easy to be like, hey, I know you know Connor through this thing, or I know you like Connor's podcast or Griffin's podcast or whatever. We do this other show, blah 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 blah. Here's the weird rundown of it. Do you want to do it? And it's, you know, we've done the show in New York for so long that it's like gotten to the point where we've got to either go for the people that we've never tried before, or like get creative with who we're getting or stuff like that, just because we've done probably 150 shows in New York, you know, and each one has at least 2 guests. So it's like you start to hit the point where you're like, have we had everybody? Has everyone who's going to do this show?
Right.
So it's just me, you know, me reaching out. But also me going to the venues and making sure the venues are all set and we can get a good date for that, and then reaching out, confirming that it works with everyone, you know, making sure all the tickets are set up, you know, sending out the ticket link to everyone involved in the show to be like, we need you to promote this, like this is what people need to do. All that boring stuff is a big part of it. It's just like a lot of clerical or, you know, accounting work basically. And then the nice thing is once we get there and people are loaded in, there's not a ton for me to do. You know, once the show is like getting ready to start, it's kind of like okay, we'll see what happens, because we don't really plan that much for the show.
Is Connor still setting it up by himself?
No, Connor's luckily got me and hopefully whoever is there from the venue. We're doing bigger venues now, which is nice because that means they have people specifically there to help you get ready. Right. You know, because they're able to pay more people.
Is it more than one suitcase now?
It is, let's think. I think it might be 2 suitcases, and then usually I will have a suitcase because I'm bringing the posters and merch that we're selling. So I guess it's technically 3 suitcases.
Moving on.
Have the gifts stayed in the same dollar range?
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much whatever he can find, or you know.
I love that part. That was awesome. Like, here's a stick. Like,
oh yeah, like going to that one thrift shop. He's like, oh, this was a mistake. And I was like, oh man, yeah, I know that feel. You went to the wrong place. It's
really relatable. Yeah.
You went to the wrong place. You went to the right place, but you went to the wrong place.
For your wallet, it's the wrong place.
Yeah.
Something that he figured out that's like cheap and everyone will get one is buying old like movie trailer film strips, because you just
I have like 3 in my closet right now.
Yeah. But you can, exactly, that's the thing. So now you cut that into 300 pieces and you put one on every chair and every single person gets a prize. You know, he's destroying history. That's that's the downside. Yeah. It is what it is.
I think I have one for Revenge of the Sith actually in my closet.
There you go. Yeah.
This is for season 3 of Lost.
Okay. All right.
Flex.
Now we're talking.
Yeah,
Let me look at this. Hold on one second.
All right.
Uh-oh.
I flew down. I just went. I went to Hawaii like 3 months ago. I went for the 20th anniversary Michael Giacchino concert for Lost. And this is my
sand.
Yes, from the you know, where all the tents were and stuff in season 2 and beyond. And then this is my one for only stuff from the crash site. I went crazy. It was fun. So I'm saying I get it. I'm saying I get it.
Yeah.
Doing stuff like that is fun. Just the geekiness is what makes it awesome.
Well, that trip was great specifically because I was like, I'm going by myself. First of all, some friends are going to the concert, but I'm going to go down by myself. and I'm just going to go to a bunch of the locations from Lost because that means I'm going to avoid all of the tourist spots.
Right.
It's just going to be like, here's a random beach, here's a random, like hiking trail, stuff like that.
Here's a random banyan tree.
Yes, exactly. I went.
Yeah.
But it was so nice to just like have fun on places where there weren't 300 people also there.
Yeah.
Did you recite any lines when you were there?
Yeah.
Any of the spots?
No, I don't think so. That makes it sad, I think. I think there's a line that you gotta say where if you're by yourself saying, if we can't live together, we're gonna die alone, then it becomes sad.
Not to tangent it too much for you, but
yeah.
Because we have the shared friend and our friend Ralph.
Yeah. Apple, Ralph is there. Yes.
Yeah. Who like you producing this is producing the Getting Lost documentary, and like that's kind of how I found out.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in that documentary, baby.
Yeah, I'm one of the people that donated money to. I'm going to be at the premiere with my son. In a couple months, but
I'm so excited for it.
So I'll probably see you in person there then.
That's great.
But yeah, just like that was going to be part of my question, like because we're all kind of geeking about this. Like it's part of like what Connor was saying in the documentary at one point was I couldn't figure out like a way to kind of formulate it into a question, but I found myself really connecting to a lot of like Connor's like life experiences, both like with like his personal and like career-wise and like what was like going through his head with about like feeling certain ways at different times. And then like how people can have like those different kind of life experiences that also kind of have similar life experiences, but that's what draws them to these different kind of fandoms, whether it's like Lost or Star Wars or something like that. And then you end up forming these tribes of people that you have these connections with because of that. But then you find out you have these different like lived experiences that actually connect you a bit more too. So I guess in general, kind of like, because the documentary itself it's a way, and your show is a way of kind of celebrating that fandom that you have for a thing. It's like in a unique way, and then because it's like done as a talk show like that, and you have this group of people there, so it's like a communal experience. What has that feeling been like for you both in like helping to produce that show, but then like while you're there, while they're going on, to kind of like feel the vibe of the room and like
I mean,
like just everyone's like enjoying that same kind of
when you're sitting on a stage in a room, like our last live show was like 350 people or something like that. It was like really big for us. And when you're sitting on a stage in that room, on the stage, as a part of the group that is making everyone laugh and have a good time, it's such a wild feeling, because normally I would be watching a show like that, but to be part of the show that people specifically came out to see is so nice and heartwarming. And this might sound cheesy as hell, but like, I just want everyone to have a good time, and I want everyone who's coming to the show, I don't want anyone who's leaving, whether they're in the show or in the crowd, to be like, I wish we had gone to the movies, or I wish we had done XYZ,
Right.
So when you're up there and you're like, I think everyone's digging this, it's a very good feeling. And I would still have to ask people afterwards to be like, I think that was fun, right? I think that was good. Just because I want to hear people say, yes, we had a good time, they're not going to lie to me, but it is like nice to get that validation of like, it felt fun up on stage. Was it fun for you guys too? Or like, there's some shows where like, we'll get to the end and I'll just be like, all right, yeah, that was like a standard show, like we did the thing and nothing crazy happened, but it was fun. And I think I need to get out of my head about that, because those shows are still fun for people, even if sometimes it feels like we're just going through the motions, on our end. That doesn't happen that often, but occasionally it will. But just, like meeting people afterwards and like seeing people I know coming to them, it's always so heartwarming and just like a really nice feeling, because I love going to live shows and I love seeing live comedy, and I was scared during COVID that was going to end, you know?
Yes.
And it's definitely different now. Like, things are different in a lot of ways. Like, it's harder to sell tickets. It's harder to get people to come out than it was 4 years ago. But at the same time, like, when you do come out, you can still have a good time and still have fun and forget all that other junk that's happening, you know?
Yeah.
So it's nice to have built a community like that, and getting this, you know, when someone comes up to us and is like, hey, I'm at Poopy Boxer Shorts online, you know, and you're like, oh my God, Poopy Boxer Shorts, guys, look, it's Poopy Boxer Shorts. Like, it's so funny every time it happens when someone is clearly so embarrassed to have to go up and say what their handle is.
Well, you created the handle.
Yeah, bring it on. Poopy Boxer Shorts. Yeah. But it's always fun to like have that experience happen when you're like, oh, I know exactly who you are, and I didn't know you were a boy, or I didn't know that you were 7 feet tall, or whatever it is. Like, it's weird putting that person in front of you.
Right.
It's great though. It's great.
Have you ever had a guest that you've been trying to get and you just haven't gotten?
Yeah.
Like, dream guests.
Yeah, they're weird.
Besides George.
Yeah. Yes. I don't have the same George urge as other people do, because I don't know how it's going to go. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'd be curious to see it, but if it never happens, it never happens for me personally. My ones, and these are just all over for any show that I book, that I've been trying to get these people. I think they would be great on our show, but they've not happened yet. It's Michael Emerson. I want Michael Emerson on that show. I just want to see what that is, you know? It's Carol Kane, character actress Carol Kane, just someone who I'm also just like, I'd like to meet you. You're cool. And Frank Oz is the obvious one, you know, like it would be the thing that would be great. I don't know if it'll ever happen on George Lucas Talk Show. I think it's probably too close to home maybe for him, but I would love to get him on something that I'm doing, just because, you know, he's impacted so many things in my life, and I feel like he would have fun, and I just wish he would go do more fun things like that. You know what I mean? Because I would love to be the person that he chooses to come on their show. I mean, there's a ton of people, you know, like I've done a show with Mark Hamill, which was great. I've done stuff with Anthony Daniels, which was great. I think they would both be great on the show, but I don't know if they would do it. You know, it's one of those things where you have to weigh, like, they would be great. Is this worth the ask? Would they do it?
Right.
Or would they?
I think Hamill would do it.
I think, yeah.
I feel like he's down to earth enough.
Yeah, that would be the dream, one of them. But you know, I think some people wrongfully think that this show is making fun of George. And I don't think that we're doing that. I think there's a difference between poking fun and making fun.
Right.
And I think that sometimes we will poke fun at things that he has worked on, but we will also, in that same breath, be like, yeah, but it changed the industry in these 8 ways.
Right.
You know? Like,
it's like Howard the Duck. Yeah, I was going to say Howard the Duck coat.
You can laugh at Howard the Duck all you want, but at the same time, like, it's the first Marvel movie. It's the first, like, some of the effects in it were, like, groundbreaking at the time. The Tippett work is so good in it. Like, there's a lot of things in it that, you know, changed the industry. So that's one of the hard things, is getting across to people who know George that this is not me.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like in like a loving, friendly, like the same way you would like you'd rib like a good friend or something like that. It's not like you're doing like gotcha stuff with it.
Oh, Kyle MacLachlan too. I want Kyle MacLachlan.
Nice.
Bring it on. That's another one.
Kind of, I guess, speaking of that, was not easier, but was it easier when you were doing during lockdown to get, because they didn't have to go anywhere.
They didn't have to go anywhere. They didn't have to, you know, put on real clothes. Right. We were all COVID was weirdly, and this is such a weird sentence I'm about to say, but COVID was weirdly very good for us. You know, like, it changed the show in so many different ways, and like got us out in front of a bigger audience, and that would not have happened had we all not been on the same playing field of, like, well, or at least most of us being on the same playing field of, welp, I can't leave my house. You know, I can't go be around other people. I'm not saying everyone did that, but, you know, a lot of people did. And it definitely helped us out a lot because it becomes much more of a thing when you're like, okay, well, you have to come to Brooklyn at 9 p.m. on a Friday. And like, I know you live in London, so we have to get you the 1 week that you're in New York. Like, there's a lot of variables when it's a live show versus like, I don't know, just sit down in front of your computer like 30 seconds before we go live and it'll be fine.
Just be ready.
And you can leave whenever you want. You know, like that's the other selling point is like, you can stay for 40 minutes, you can stay for 3 hours. We'll make it work with whatever you want to do.
That's true. You brought Acolyte earlier. I've kind of liked how The Good Place has been spreading into the Star Wars universe between, you know, Darcy Carden, I saw as the producer on this with you. And she had a little bit, well, she was on the show. But then you got TSC Car who's in Rebels. So I just like how Rebels keeps spreading its fingers into, just need Ted Danson to show up as like an old Jedi.
Give me that. That sounds awesome. Great. I think almost anyone in that cast would be rad in Star Wars.
Yeah, get Jamila in there as like a Sith or something like that.
Oh my god.
She's probably got a lot of contract.
Oh yeah, but she can do both. She can do both.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Everyone just go have fun. Who cares about contracts? Sign whatever contracts you want and then break them. It doesn't matter.
There you go.
No, Darcy's great. Darcy, we've known for I've known Darcy for 14 years at this point because she used to do improv in New York at UCB a lot before she moved to LA, and she was doing shows with Connor and on teams with Connor, and she was one that during lockdown it has been on the most and probably put in maybe the most airtime, like of just like being on the show the longest, probably top 3 people or something like that. But she's great, and she's someone who just like will go with anything and we'll have fun, and it doesn't matter how stupid the thing is that you're doing. Like, she's there to do it with you, and it's great. And we're so happy that her and Bobby Moynihan are EPs on the dock. It's really cool because we like them both. You know, they're both nice people.
What was your favorite moment of making this documentary? Do you have one?
That's a good question. Favorite moment of making the doc? I mean, I just like that. I like that so much of it is just like preserved forever. You know, like you've got that scene in my apartment, and like I lived in that apartment for 6 years, and like so much of my life took place in there, and I don't live there anymore. And like it's weird to be able to look back and be like, oh yeah, there's life pre-COVID. That's what this was like. And like, there's all my friends who I don't get to see as much anymore because I moved across the country, and you know, just being able to like relive a lot of that stuff. I think the thing that is coolest for me in the doc, in a way, cool, you'll see why in a way, but the there's a point in the doc where spoiler alert, COVID happens and everything shuts down, and my friend went to UCB to go pick up all of our stuff and bring it to us. Like all of our props and things like that. And it's weird, like seeing something you weren't there for, you know, like I've never set foot in that building again, you know, like I was there on a Sunday, and then on Wednesday, everything closed down and I've never gone back. So it's like, it's weirdly cathartic to be like, well, here's my last time in that building, you know, because when you're there, you don't know it's your last time, you know? So I think that is the part that I like the most, is just being able to like see those final few moments of like my friend Sam walking through them and bringing stuff to me in Queens. And I was so happy that they were able to like, Marsh, the cameraman, had a car and was able to get out there, and, you know, they were all masked up and everything and go through. And so that's the part that's coolest for me, but also just like seeing people in places that I don't get to visit anymore. And, you know, remembering New York as it was for me is a very nice thing.
Right.
Now, on that scene, were you the one on the phone with them telling them what to look for?
I was, yeah.
So you're the one be like, squeeze his stomach. It makes noise.
Yes.
Squeeze.
You got to have fun where you can, you know, that was
absolutely. I just thought
June 2020.
Not even looking at it.
Oh yeah.
Just wasn't listening.
Yeah. If you look on the phone, my head is fully shaved and I have a beard down to here, just because I was like, we're letting it all go. It doesn't matter. So that was peak, like, oh, Patrick's not leaving the house time. So it's fun to look back on that too and know that it turned out relatively okay for a lot of us.
Nice. And like when you guys go to Missouri in the documentary at that one point, thought it's kind of interesting. Mike noticed this too, because I saw it in his notes, is that Connor's dad had like a similar take on his show to like what he was doing like as a weatherman, and then like with the puppet show there too, with to like kind of the same, like almost like the same
mentality.
Yeah,
very weird.
And which I made me wonder, was like, I wonder if they ever like when they eventually watched like the footage, did they then have that realization that they both?
Yeah. So it was definitely Ryan, the director, didn't go on the Missouri trip. It was Marsh, the cameraman, because they didn't want to fly everyone out. It was like towards the ending of shooting, and you know, funds were running low for that kind of thing. So Marsh went out and then just gave Ryan all the footage. And then during lockdown, they were going through it, and it was sort of one of those, you know, Andrew Jarecki watching the footage from the Jinx interview years after they did it and being like, "Oh my God, we have it all right here. Like, here's all the stuff that we can use." It was kind of one of those moments, from what I understand, was he was like, "Oh wow, this like weirdly connects so much better than we could have
it was
thought that."
I didn't know if that was planned or something. It just felt too good.
Yeah, not planned at all. I mean, we knew, at least, you know, I knew, I don't know how much they knew, that like Connor's dad had a TV show and it was like very DIY and stuff like that, but I don't think they knew the extent of like just how almost beat for beat their stories were going to be talking about these things that they, you know, their passion projects that they were working on.
And did anyone feed Connor's mom the line about, "So you think you're his father," or whatever?
I don't think so. She's very funny. She's very funny in real life.
And I was like, oh man.
Yes, no, they're the stars of the documentary, and I've told them that, and it's very good. No, she's very funny, so I think that is their relationship, in the best way.
Yeah, that was fun watching that, because you could tell just like the way that they were feeding off one another, that just like him probably growing up with them, probably doing that all the time, you know, like fed who he was. And
totally.
Yeah. So the fact he was on his dad's show.
Yeah.
And all that.
It's so great that all that footage exists. Like the amount of archive footage that we had for this was so cool. And you know, a lot of it on the show was just like me sitting in the front row with like a camera on my chest, like filming the show just for our own posterity stuff, not knowing that we'd use it for anything. But all that stuff from when he's a kid is so amazing. And like, it's crazy that it exists, and it's crazy that he had it, you know, ready to go and was able to use it for this.
Now, with all your guests, have you ever had someone on the show that you just like died laughing at because they were blown away because they didn't understand what was happening when they got on the stage? They were just lost and confused and like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We've had a couple guests who have never seen Star Wars. And the two that stick out to me, Connor briefly mentions one of them in the doc, was Nicole Byer, who had never seen a Star Wars. But at that point, now she has. Now she's done a podcast where she's seen almost every Star Wars thing. But at that point, had not seen anything. And she was just like blown away at every new thing that he revealed to her about those movies. But the other one, and it's such a funny episode, we did a show at the Bell House in Brooklyn, maybe like a year and a half ago, something like that. And this comedian, X Mayo, she fully had no idea what a lot of Star Wars was about, and just asking every single time someone mentioned something, being like, "Now what is that?" And us having to like try to realize how insane every single thing is that we're explaining. We were just like, "Who's Gardula the Hutt?" Okay, Gardula the Hutt is Jabba's sister, and she's in the background of one shot. Like, just it was her just being so confused by everything. We have Griffin has the Watto Taco Bell cup when Phantom Menace came out, and just reading the back of it about how, you know, he's a haggler and he's a junk dealer, and how he, you know, betting on pod races and how he won his 2 slaves. And she was just like, she like dropped the cup and was just like, "I need you to tell me so much more information about this." And it's truly so funny. But I feel like a lot of people have picked up just by osmosis, like a lot of Star Wars stuff.
Yes.
But that was definitely one that stuck out to me. That's a really funny, if people want to go watch a funny episode. That's
You mentioned Watto. Was there ever any consideration of being like, I don't know if Watto's the right choice here. Because when I forgot who you had as Jar Jar.
Yes, we had Sean Diston. Yeah,
I didn't know when he left if there was like, oh, I want to do Watto. Oh, that's not the right fit. Can we do this instead? Like,
yeah, I mean, Connor talks about this a little bit in the doc, but it was definitely something where he didn't know if he wanted to have a sidekick, because a sidekick on this show specifically is so specific. And Sean at the time was not a big Star Wars fan when he was playing Jar Jar. He like knew the general beats.
Right.
So he wasn't able to like get into the minutia of it all that like Connor and Griffin are able to. But Griffin is and knows a lot of stuff about Star Wars and about filmmaking and about George and about everything, you know? So to make a sidekick work on this show, you sort of got to know a lot of stuff. And you have to know a lot of Star Wars lore and a lot about this character that you're playing, because it works so much better. And I'm not saying it didn't work for Sean, because it definitely did. But like at this point in the show, that's what you sort of need to be able to keep up with what's going on. And I think Connor had a few moments of doubt whether we should do it, but all of those moments happened before Griffin did the show. You know, like as soon as Griffin did the show, it sort of all disappeared, because he was like, oh no, this is obviously the right move. I think the more questionable thing was, are we leaning into the weird episode 1 characters who some people find problematic? You know, like that was the thing that was more like, all right, is this something we want to go down? But then, you know, when we all remembered, oh duh, we're not being problematic on the show, you know, like we're not the problem here, you know, so it shouldn't be an issue. And I think once we got over that hurdle, it was fine. You know?
And kind of, I guess, speaking of episode 1 in the Phantom Menace, you guys just recently did like the live like script reading of it.
Yeah.
Like, I was trying to watch it before this just a little bit.
Yeah.
How did that all come about with getting that coordinated and with the different people you had doing the readings with for that?
So we're friends with the guys from the Star Wars Minute podcast, Pete and Alex. And they asked me, they reached out and they were like, oh, we've always wanted to do like a live script reading of a Star Wars thing. And I said, yep, sign me up. I don't need any more information. I'm there. I'm good. And I think they wanted to do something maybe a little bit smaller. And then I was like, no, we gotta like blow this guy out. Like we gotta do this for real, especially because the date at the theater that I do a lot of stuff at, Dynasty Typewriter here in LA, which is like a nice like 200-seat theater. The one date in May they had open was May 19th, which is the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace. So I was like, we got to go all out on this, you know? And it was just a matter of like looking at the character list and being like, who do I know or who do I want to know that I think would be an interesting take on this character? And Pete and Alex had a few guys who they had come in, a lot of the guys from the Super Ego podcast they brought in because they've been on their show before. But, you know, like Haley Joel Osment was Anakin. And I was like, that's interesting because he auditioned for Anakin in episode 1. So, like, let's hear what his interpretation of this is.
Let's see what George didn't like.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, just like
dead eyes.
Yes. Just thinking about who would be an interesting different choice going into it. And the way we like pitched it to people was like, this movie gets a lot of guff from people, and I don't want this to be another thing to add onto that pile. I want this to be a fun celebration of that movie. So let's do it positively, and you know, you can have fun with it. Again, it's the line of poking fun and making fun. Like, you can poke fun with this, or you can do this in a different, you can read this character in a different way that maybe makes the character funnier than it's going to be on the screen, you know? But I don't want you to like pause the reading to be like, this sucks. This is stupid. You know, like avoid that, because number one, it's not, it's fun. It's fun. Let's have fun with it.
Have fun with it.
And number two, that's boring, you know, like, especially at this point
it's played out.
It's played out, and it's a lot of people are tired of it, you know, so we don't need that anymore. So it was just a matter of like reaching out to a lot of people I knew, and I knew probably, I don't know, maybe like 90% of the people who did it. I'd never met Lorraine Newman before, and I'd never met Eric Bauza before. Eric did Jar Jar, but he's the voice of all the Looney Tunes, and he read Jar Jar as if Daffy Duck was reading the script.
I haven't gotten to that part yet.
It's fantastic. It's something where you're like, oh wow, Daffy is a Looney Tune. Jar Jar is a Looney Tune. Like that is another way to do this character, and it works like this as well. Like there's more than one way to do this, and it was just fascinating to see the choices everyone made because we didn't do a rehearsal, we didn't do anything beforehand. It was just a matter of like, here's your line, it's highlighted. When you see a highlight, stand up and do your thing, you know. And it was so fun. It was really fun. And look, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. There might be something else coming up that's exciting. So if you're watching this, keep an eye out, and it'll be live streaming if hypothetically this thing happens, and or you can come in person.
Nice.
Now, with all the work you do with Star Wars and George Lucas in this, have you ever been contacted by Lucasfilm to be like, we know what you're doing, it's okay, or cease and desist this part? Or
officially no. Officially no. I know, you know, look, we know a lot of people who work there, and it's something where the show not be officially sanctioned by that company for obvious reasons. We've never gotten a cease and desist. We've never been told to stop anything, but we're friends with a lot of people in that orbit, and they're very complimentary. So it's, you know, it's been very nice to get to meet those people who work there and kind of have a shared bond over like, I like what you do, I like what you do, you know, which is fun. But yeah, no, never a cease and desist, never a please stop, never anything to that effect, which is nice to do, you know. I mean, George is the guy where in the 70s, like Mad Magazine did a parody of Star Wars, and they got a call from Lucasfilm's lawyers being like, hey, cease and desist, you can't do this anymore. And then they said, oh, that's so funny, 2 days ago George called us and asked us if he could buy the original art, you know. So like it's a guy who's like, he enjoys this kind of stuff. I'm not saying he enjoys our thing specifically, but like he's okay with poking fun at things.
I feel like he would, just because he like, you know, like helped produce Detours and like the Robot Chicken, like
signed off on Spaceballs and all that.
Yeah. He knows comedy. You know?
He's like, I'm good with it. He's like,
I hope so. I would hope so. It would make me very sad if he was not. But I also think if he knew about it at this point and was not cool with it, we would have heard about it. You know? Probably. So.
As we're kind of wrapping up our time with you, because I don't want to keep you hostage, like Watto did to Anakin and his mom. Yeah. We had like maybe just the last few questions for you, and one of them was the good question I saw Mike wrote down, if I'm going to steal it from him, was did anyone ever try to convince Connor to get a wig?
Damn you! I was actually going to ask that, man.
Great question.
Rather than like spraying the poison into his face.
I think a lot of people have suggested it. I don't think he's ever taken it as a serious suggestion, because I think he knows that any wig he wears is going to look silly. And, you know, like you can tell that him spraying his hair, that is his real hair. So I don't think it's ever been under serious consideration.
What about just getting a less poisonous version of the spray?
Guys, you got to suffer for your art. You got to suffer. So I think it is what it is at this point, and I don't know if that's going to change. I wish there was a diet hairspray or whatever, you know, something that would save that, but I don't know if that exists.
I mean, if does the show long enough, just won't have to do it anymore.
That's true. I mean, that's the hope. Yeah. He did. We went to Edinburgh Fringe Fest last year, and we did, I think it was like 30 shows in 26 days or something like that. And it wasn't all talk shows. We did a play that Connor wrote about Watto and Baron Papanoida being stranded on a planet trying to get off. It was sort of like a Waiting for Godot in space. Yeah, it was called The Baron and the Junk Dealer. And so we did that, but he had to spray up every single day. And he looked into, what if I just dyed my hair? And we found out that in the state of New York, this is what we were told. In the state of New York, it is illegal to dye someone's beard. What? I don't know. So
New York's weird, man.
New York's got weird rules, man. So it has never been under serious consideration, but that is a weird fun fact.
That is bizarre. I know some
Yeah.
people are breaking the law then.
Yeah, like professionally, like going to a hair salon and dying. I don't know. That's what I was told.
I guess we'll end on this one. Of all the things you've had to collect and hand out to the audience, is sticks the most ridiculous thing? And how often have you had to collect sticks?
That was a one-time thing. Collecting the sticks is something you see in the documentary. Yeah, that's probably the stupidest. I'm trying to think if there's anything dumber than that. That feels like.
I guess I have one more question, but
yeah.
How bad did Billy D's cologne smell? Was my last.
It was truly so bad. You see in the documentary, for people who haven't seen it yet, we go to New York Comic Con and Connor brings a bottle of Billy D. Williams cologne, Undeniable, and starts spraying it into the crowd. And it had like fully fermented at that time because it was 30 years old, basically. And it was like germ warfare. It was like really bad. And the fact that we did it right before COVID, when like airborne cells flying through the air became such a like thing that people paid attention to, was fascinating. Because I don't think we could ever do something like that again. But it was very bad. And I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm glad this isn't smell-o-vision for this right now.
Yes. Maybe we should include it when we do the Blu-ray. We'll put little samples.
Yeah,
little sample things.
Like the magazine things where you peel it.
Yeah. I'll look into that. That's another dumb thing for me to collect now.
Well, we do want to thank you for joining us again.
Yes, we appreciate it very much.
Where can people find you and like more info about the documentary and the show in general if they want to check it out?
So you can go to the George Lucas Talk Show. It's all on YouTube. Basically anything up there since May 2020 is up on YouTube. The way I recommend for new people is to just find a guest that you like and watch that episode, because it's easier to get in if it's someone that you know and like. The documentary is up on VOD now. It's on imgeorgelucas.com. It's you can watch it on a website now. In the coming months, we've signed a distribution deal, and it will be up on more places that you can watch it. Easier ways, different ways. But all the info is at imgeorgelucas.com. You can go to naboomovie.com if you want to watch the Naboo movie, which is the 25th anniversary reading of the Phantom Menace. That'll redirect you to YouTube. You can go to at Patrick Cotnoir on X, at Cotnoir on Instagram, at whatever. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on all that stuff. Or just patrickcotnoir.com, and it'll have all the info on it.
Nice.
Let's come to that.
And then people, for us, if you want to find us, we're just at holdopod.com or Holdo Maneuver if you know how to spell maneuver.
I don't. Can't
that's
spell.
That's why we bought both, just in case people can't spell. But I feel like this is the most appropriate time for us to ever do our closing for the episode.
Oh, Jesus.
As always,
I don't impersonate him, so
I'm ready. I'm ready. Do it.
As always, we're grateful to George Lucas for creating the Star Wars universe.
Oh my! Thank the maker. Terrible.
Bye. Well, I mean, you're not impersonating George. You're impersonating Anthony Daniels.
It's great. I love it.